Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. I know there's a little bit of a delay there, but hello. Let's see if this is all working properly. This right here is what we call an experiment. I do not know if my computer is working right now. So this is the deal. We've been doing these live streams for a while. It's been about 6 months since I started putting everything together. And finally, my computer hit a bottleneck. So I had to get a new graphics card that I've been waiting on for a long time. And it seems that I did not set it up correctly. We will find out very soon. Don't know what the problem is here. All right, so OBS seems like it's running. Why is this frozen? Hello. I don't know if anybody's there. If you're there, if you hear anything, if you see anything, say something. Let me know if this is just completely dog shit trash for no goddamn reason. It was all working fine for so long, Let's try this. How about this? Doesn't work. Dope. Frozen. Fucking perfect. Such a pain in the dick. Is it working now? Hello. I think it's working. Sorry about that. This is like, I don't know what you heard. I don't know if anything came through until just now, but hello. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the stream. I swear to God, I just can't start one of these properly. It'll never happen. So this one at least is like somewhat not my fault, I think. I mean, it's ultimately my fault, but I had to upgrade my computer because I've been doing these streams for about 5 months. I started in November putting everything together, and I just basically did as much as I could without my computer falling apart. And it finally hit a point where I had to upgrade some parts. Which was great because I was like so close to breaking even financially on all of this through all the shows, and then immediately had to go and splurge on a graphics card that was over 200% of what it was supposed to cost. And I put it in, and this is my first attempt at doing a stream since then. I'm basically doing this so that it doesn't happen on the live show that we're doing on Friday. On Friday, Jack Holmes is doing a live show. You should check it out if you're around and interested. This stream right here might have some problems in it. Basically, I'm ironing out the kinks, trying to figure out if I have the right settings now. Did my GPU upgrade actually make it worth it, or did I spend $900 on equipment that didn't really change the quality of the stream? That's what we're gonna find out. Are we gonna find a good? Am I gonna be happy with the answer? Probably not. If I had to make an assumption. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Feel free to shout out where you're from, what you're up to, how you're doing in all these Corona times. I don't know. I feel like the world is opening back up, and I just kind of put my head in the sand about 2 months ago. I was like, the world's never going to open again, so I'm going to put my head in the sand, and I'll look around. Once I've been back out in the world for 6 months, I'll look around and be like, hey, did you guys realize we're not inside anymore? That's my ultimate plan. And I'm sure it's gonna bite me in the ass. So hello, how are you guys doing? What is the situation like where you're at? What is the situation like where I'm at? You know, if you live in Vienna, I'd be very curious. How are things going with us? Are we doing okay? I've chosen not to look at any news in coronavirus stuff for a few months now because of my own sanity, but you know, it's probably worth knowing. I think things are opening back up soon, and we're gonna be able to theoretically do some in-person shows again soon. We'll see. We'll see if that stay. It all seems kind of weird to me that we go from 6 months of like nothing can be open, restaurants don't set foot inside a restaurant, to okay, restaurants are opening and you can cram 50 people in there for a show same day. Doesn't make sense to me, but it's theoretically possible. So we booked a show for June, and I'll see if it actually happens. As for right now, I'm still gonna just do some troubleshooting, see if I can figure out what, if this is all working well. Even if Austria's doing okay, people will still complain. That is true. That is very true. At least in Vienna. I will say that every time I make a joke about Austrians being complainy or rude or not having a good sense of humor, people get really mad at me. Austrians specifically get very mad at me. And what I realize every time I say it, and then I realize about 3 seconds later, I should have said Viennese and nobody would have disagreed with me. You know, you say Austrians don't have a good sense of humor and Austrians are like, excuse me. First off, that's racist. Secondly, that's the Germans. P.S. I'm also racist. Third, we have a great sense of humor. We laugh about kids getting, molested in basements. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. Austrian humor, you don't get it. It's just, it hits different. That's the reaction I get every time I say that Austrians aren't funny. So what I mean is, Viennese people aren't funny. Viennese people like to complain, and Viennese people have a tendency to be rude. Come at me. Anyway, I'm assuming by that response that you can actually hear me. This is going to be a very haphazard, not the most professional stream I've done before. Mostly because I'm not 100% sure it's broadcasting properly. And I'm trying to do this thing where I test it at the same time, and it's not working. So I every time I try to check, I hear no audio, but I'm hoping you guys do. And we'll soon get down to the point of today, which is to find out whether or not Reginald Barris is a Nazi. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would anybody think that? Isn't your dad black? How could you be a Nazi? Fair question. All I can say for sure is that we live in strange times, okay? And every day you find out horrible things about people you thought you knew. Everybody, racists, they're all around us, It's like if The Walking Dead happened, but I guess it's like, what is the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where like this person you thought you knew your whole life, you're like, what? He was racist the whole time. And then there's like always has been type of situation. And it just seems like every day you say stuff and what you're allowed to say without being called a racist or a Nazi just goes down and down and down. So I found a political, like a profile thing where you go through your political opinions and it'll tell you exactly where you fall. I'm betting it's not going to be Nazi, but I won't rule it out. I have lived in Austria for several years. And am I going to say that everybody in Austria is a Nazi? Of course, I'm not going to say that. Is it true? You be the judge, okay? I'm lacking the mustache. It's a tough set. I like how with that rationale, like the only reason Hitler was a Nazi was the mustache. Like if he shaved it off, he'd be fucking Gandhi. But that mustache, it just took control of his life. Like that Treehouse of Horror episode of The Simpsons. I think it was based on something else in pop culture. But the one where Snake, the criminal, I think he got executed in an electric chair, and then his hair was donated to be a wig. It sounds absurd as I say it. I'm pretty sure that his hair was donated, so it was a wig, and then Homer got the wig, and then when he put the wig on, it seeped into his brain, took over, and suddenly he was possessed by the criminal. I feel like that's what happened with Hitler and the mustache. He was just a nice, peace-loving artist, a free thinker, and then he grew a mustache, and it just got its tendrils deep into his cerebellum, and he was never the same after that. Anyway. Man, it's been a weird time for me. I'll just catch you up on what's going on with me real quick. I've been doing a lot of technical stuff. Haven't been working on comedy very much, which is, probably apparent from the way I'm talking right now. But I've been working on some stuff. I've been taking a video game development course, and that's been interesting. Started learning C#, scripting language. I'm learning it, when I say started learning it, I mean, I spent like 7 days, and I can do some stuff, but I feel like I'm fraud as I do it. That's about where I'm at right now. But I have a plan, at least. I have a game that I want to make specifically, and I don't want to talk too much about it because it's, I started learning how to do this 7 days ago. More than 7 days ago, but 7 days worth of actual instruction ago. So it's a pretty big undertaking. It's going to be a pretty steep learning curve. And also, here's the thing, I'm not a very good artist, like from a visual standpoint, and you have to make your own app. You can't just like take Mario's images and put them into a game and call it yours. So I got to draw all this stuff too, and I don't really know how to draw. So it's, I'm not going to tell you exactly what's going on because there's so much chance for it to fail, but I have been, busy with that, and it's been pretty fun. Check history, all the great authoritarians had mustaches except for Putin. Is that true? I feel like, let's look it up. Because I feel like that's true for Stalin. And what about Mao? Okay, here we go. Oh, you're gonna feel so dumb in about 30 seconds when I pull this up. Let me see, and here we go. Mao Zedong. I don't see a single goddamn mustache here. Nowhere. None of these are mustaches. So unless you're saying that he's just not a very good authoritarian, which I'll be quite frank, I know nothing about him. I watched a TikTok earlier today where she was doing like these like things they don't teach you in school type things. And it was about somebody said like the idea was that Hitler was the, most killingest dictator that's been alive in history. And it was like, well, no, actually there's Mao Zedong. I know nobody talks about it. And the whole internet exploded against this girl and was like, excuse me, you stupid fucking American idiot, dumb, idiot, dumb. Everybody knows about Mao Zedong. Maybe you just are dumb. And I'll be honest, she's not wrong, because I don't know anything about Mao Zedong. I don't even know if I'm saying it right, to be perfectly honest. All I know for sure is that he did not have a good mustache. So Christian, your theory is off base, or he's not so important after all, and that's why we didn't have to learn about him in school, is because who really cares? Let's see. Got Mao Zedong, we've got, okay, Saddam. You call that a good mustache? Because I would say that's a beard, And sure, were the other pictures better examples? Of course they were, but this one was the more fun one to pull up immediately. Let's see, we have, yeah, that's a mustache there. Who else do we have? We have, no mustache. Your theory is really falling apart real quick. Unless it only applies to non-Asian people. No mustache. Who else is there? Pol Pot. Did Pol Pot? I don't know how to spell it. Pol Pot? What's cheating? That I just chose people that are historically significant, or that they're Asian? It's not my fault. It's not my fault. No, this isn't cheating. I'm choosing the first people I can think of. I'll be honest, I don't even know if this is pictures of Pol Pot. These all look like different people to me. But no mustache, that's for sure. Who else do we have? Castro. Did Castro have a mustache? That was not a very good mustache, I'll say that. The beard is much more iconic. You're falling apart. This theory holds no water. Shame on you. Shame on you for daring to make a theory. Because clearly, the mustache is not what makes the dictator. Okay, there's more to it. That's what I'm saying. Don't just walk down the street thinking, oh, the world's worst dictator known to man. I think we all know who I'm talking about. Oh my God. If your theory were even close to right, this man would have killed more people than the WCW wanted you to believe. I know that if you look at his legacy, if you look at his record, it says, probably like 10 million victories to no losses. Maybe that's a hype machine, but this man's mustache, as far as like mustaches that make you look like you're going to murder an innocent person based on ethnicity. I'm gonna be honest. This one's almost stronger than the Hitler mustache for me. Like the Hitler mustache, I almost feel like you're an ironic hipster at this point. This mustache, whether you intend it or not, makes me think you've probably committed a hate crime at some point in time. So, ugh. So I don't know, that might actually help your mustache theory. Don't know if it hurts it, makes it better, worse, not sure. Either way, we should get down to business and find out whether or not Reginald Barris is a Nazi. Spoilers. I'm not white. But before that, I just want to mention real quick, in case you guys haven't noticed yet, if you look down in the link below, there's going to be a comedy show. Well, it's not, the Friday one isn't mentioned, but on Friday, this Friday, 8 p.m. Central European time, I'm going to be producing a show for Jack Holmes. He's a very funny comedian. We're doing an online show. We have an interactive laugh track that I built. You can actually use it if you're on Twitch or what's the Twitch or YouTube right now. They should both be active. Well, maybe YouTube might not be yet. There, now it's connected. So if you're on Twitch or YouTube and you're watching and you type in haha, it should activate this laugh track on the screen. It works for all kinds of things, not just that. It also works for emojis. It works for, you can boo me, you can heckle me, all kinds of things. So that's something that I built over the past several months, hundreds of hours of work. It was very time consuming. So please feel free to use it, jump over twitch.tv/TheReginaldBarris or youtube.com/TheReginaldBarris. Type in some words. They don't even have to be nice. I made a point of that, Some comedians, they'd be vain and they'd say, no, if you're going to interact with me, the only thing you can do is laugh because I only say funny things. Not me. I know that some of the things I say are dog shit. So I programmed that into it too. Yeah. How's that for honest marketing, See, I'm not going to pigeonhole you and say, okay, applaud me, laud me with your adoration that I'm sure you have. You might have complete disdain for me, and maybe you're like, I don't want to do that. Maybe I want to, I don't know where it's at. Fuck, hold on. Maybe I want to do this. Boo, not funny, Either way, that's an option. And that's what's going to be available to people on this Friday with Jack Holmes' show. If you're interested, the link is somewhere in, whatever. Buy tickets to it. But more importantly, 2 weeks after that, I'm going to be doing a show. And it's not going to be like today, where I kind of just ramble and wonder if my computer's working right and talk about, dictators and pull up mustaches for harebrained theories. Oh, no. The show on the 23rd is going to be actual stand-up comedy. And I timed it very well. I timed it so great. It was like in the middle of like lockdown. And then the goddamn government came up, always ready to fuck Reggie over. First, they were like, hey, 6 months, you don't get to work. Don't worry, we'll give you $1,000 a month. Oh, that's less than your rent and everything? Well, suck it, And then I was like, well, you know what? If I can't go outside and I can't do comedy shows in bars, if you won't let people gather, I will invest a few thousand euros into equipment and I will make high quality live streams that I can do comedy shows online for people like that. And they said, that is a great idea. P.S. We're going to stop the lockdown 3 days before your comedy show. So guess what? You get to be doing a comedy show on the first weekend that people are allowed to go outside in Austria. Thanks, Austrian government. Appreciate it. But if you have nothing to do on a Sunday night, the first Sunday night that you're allowed to go outside, fingers crossed that it rains, you can check out the link down below, and there's information about how to get tickets. Also, if you're interested, there's a Patreon. Now, you don't know what Patreon is? Or maybe you do know what Patreon is, but I'll explain to you. So, Patreon, as you can see over here, it is a wonderful community. We are building basically this platform and just doing a bunch of other fun projects. The video game, the updates will be, how far that's coming on. I don't want to say right now what I'm planning publicly, but I will say it on Patreon. I also do a podcast where I just do updates of either jokes or projects that we're working on, or ideas for how we can make these live streams better. And there's a sense of community as we, come together and do all these things. And probably the best, incentive that there is, free tickets to the comedy shows that I mentioned. The one this Friday with Jack Holmes and the one on May 23rd, the first Sunday after we're allowed to go outside in Austria. You could be in your living room watching us with free tickets with Patreon. I wouldn't actually call this number, but you can. I'm sure it'll give you nothing. But if you go to patreon.com/TheReginaldBarris, you can get free tickets to all the online comedy shows that we do, as well as updates on other interesting projects that we're working on, and an ability to make submissions for hey, here's how we can make it even better. And you basically just load me down with tons more work because, I'm a glutton for punishment. So, that's that pimping it out of the way real quick. Just gotta get a little plug for the countless hordes of people watching right now. And now we can get down to business and we can talk about, is Reginald Barris a Nazi? Let's find out. All right, so begin. Gotta answer all these questions and it's gonna be riveting. Chef's kiss. Also, I'll still be able to read chat. So if you want to talk, then if you don't think this is going to be interesting, then talk to me and we'll see how that goes. But if you don't think it's interesting, get on twitch.tv/TheReginaldBarris and then type in heckle and see what happens. So we will now run through the pages of questions, each with their own theme. This one judges your economist standpoint. So make sure that you guys can see it. Yeah. Freedom of big business is the best practical way society can prosper. It's a weird wording, but I'm gonna say kind of agree. Charity is a better way of helping people in need than social welfare. I'm gonna say kind of disagree. I think both are effective. And I think both have their problems as well. I think both have instances where it's that was a waste of money, but I'm gonna say I kind of disagree. Organizations and corporations cannot be trusted and need to be regulated by the government. Kind of agree. I think corporations can be trusted, as long as if you're limiting what you're trusting them with. I guess it's one of those things where I can trust you because I don't I can trust you with as much as I'm willing to let myself, go out on a limb. Am I going to trust a corporation to decide whether or not my mom has to get taken off of life support? I will never trust a corporation that much. Will I trust them to sell me a product that I think is good? Probably. I think they can be trusted as long as you have realistic expectations of trust. A government that provides for everyone is an inherently good idea. Kind of agree. I think I'm gonna be a lot of kind of agrees and kind of disagrees. It's gonna be well, let's see. There might be some softballs they throw up to us. The current welfare system should be expanded to further combat inequality. I will say yes, knowing so little. Especially, I also feel that it changes so much depending on what country you're in. If I was in the US and somebody asked me that question, I would say yeah, definitely something needs to be changed. I have no idea how that financially works, but yeah, fix it. But I feel in Austria, I assume it's pretty fine. I don't actually know. I know that I've been able to survive, which makes me feel they're doing a pretty good job of keeping us alive. I will say with the coronavirus thing, they could be doing a better job. They could be doing a worse job. But it's also one of those things where it's like, I am thankful that I am getting some money from the government for the last year because of coronavirus. And there's part of me that's like, wow, what a great country I live in that like is helping me afford to be able to just like not thrive, but like be alive throughout this whole coronavirus situation. And I feel very fortunate for it until I remember, oh, right, the government's the reason I can't work. Hey, Anton, how's it going? That was Mrs. Doubtfire. And I got all kinds of stuff like that. I don't know, Anton, if you've seen this yet, but I got the laugh track working, and it's now got about 1,400 different words that you can type into it, and 150 different tracks. And they're not just laughter. As you saw, there was a hello. There's boos, there's heckles, there's all kinds of stuff. But hey, Anton, it's been a while. I know I haven't really been streaming, mostly because I don't know, man. Social media is just hard to keep up with in a time when it feels like there are just better things to be doing, even if those better things are absolutely nothing. It's hard to stay enthusiastic about social media, but hello, glad you're here. Yeah, but yeah, so so it is definitely a thing where it's hard for me. Like it is this. I do feel very fortunate that like Austria is doing something to take care of people, because I know that in the States there's been significantly less help from the government. But at the same time, it is like it's almost like somebody like slaps a sandwich out of your hand and then gives you a sandwich, and you're like, oh, they gave me a sandwich, and it's like, yeah, but they're the reason you didn't have the sandwich in the first place. And that's how I feel with like, oh, there's been some social assistance from the Austrian government through coronavirus. That's so nice of them to give me less money than I would have earned if I'd been allowed to work, and they were the ones telling me I couldn't work. Thanks. Let's see. Wages are always fair, as a big business knows what's best for a worker's labor is worth. I'm going to say strongly disagree. We found our first strongly disagree on that one. It is human nature to be greedy. I'm going to say I kind of agree. I think that there's aspects of human nature that aren't just greed. Playing Call of Duty Warzone, well, cool. Stockholm Syndrome? It is definitely Stockholm Syndrome. But it's just like one of those things where like at a certain point, there's no one else to like, you have to thank somebody. And I think Stockholm Syndrome is most effective when they like, you also can't leave your house. So you can't like go and talk. I can't like hang out with a friend and be like, this is some bullshit, right? Yeah, this is some bullshit. I just gotta sit at home and be like, oh, I'm so lonely. I'm so lonely. Half the money I need for my bills this month? Thank you, please, sir. May I have some more? No, you're right. That was shame on me for asking. That'd be foolish. I'm sorry for being so greedy. That's the kind of situation it is, and it's straight up Stockholm Syndrome. And also just like giving up and just like expecting the world to be so bad on a day-to-day basis that like you're just like, you know what? Anything's something. Let's see. Land should not be a commodity to be bought and sold. I'm gonna say I kind of disagree. Oh, I was supposed to say indoors. Oopsie, sorry, Grandma. Well, shame on you. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know. It's also been a weird thing when it's like stay in. I guess the whole thing. I guess I was like, I don't know if I want to get this political, but at the same time, the stream is called "Am I a Nazi?" So I guess I opened a can of worms on that one, and there's no going back at this point. Yeah, I don't know. They're unrealistic expectations. Like the regulations that have been set on us for the last 6 months have been so much. Oh, hold on. Alf, hello, just popping by to wish you a lovely evening off to go study for a course you just started. All right, well, thanks for popping in. Hello, man. Hope you're doing well, and good luck on that course. And I'm curious if you have time later. I'm curious what the course is. But yep, it works now. And you spelled it right. Congrats. For a lot of the words, I put in a lot of different spellings. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I was like, there's one spelling. You have to get it perfectly right to make it work. Otherwise, you get nothing. And congrats, you found it. Yeah, the regulations have been like so much where it's like, okay, don't go and do shows, and I'm like, fine, I accept that. And then like, and then don't go outside when you don't have to, and I'm like, I can accept that. And they're like, and you're not allowed to leave the house after 8 p.m. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, unless you're exercising or you're directly helping somebody, or you have to go to work, or you're coming from work, or you just need to go out for your mental health, or you need to go out, you know, for physical health, or you're coming back from your girlfriend's or boyfriend's place, and it's just like, there are so many caveats where it's like, you don't actually expect us to stay inside, do you? Because it's like, it's a stay-at-home order that's 24 hours a day. Also, there's a curfew, but like, don't leave your house 24 hours a day. And it's like, what are you talking about? Of course, on machine learning, sounds interesting, sounds difficult, I assume. But I feel like we're in the same boat. I've been taking some courses on learning C#, and I assume that's the same thing, because I've only taken a few courses on C# so far, and I'm like, well, it's a programming language, that must be deep machine learning. But yeah, I don't know. There's so many caveats for like, you can't leave the house, period, unless 17 reasons. And it's like, I don't know, at a certain point, it's like, you're like, for the first 2 months, we were only allowed to meet with one person who wasn't in our household per month or something like that. And it was just like, what do you mean? I have to meet, like, if I just go to the store, that happens, you know, like, I don't know. It's a bit absurd. It's a bit absurd how much like the regulations are. And I'm not saying that regulations shouldn't be something. I definitely think that they're like, if you look at the states and look at like Texas, for example, it's certainly too lax. And I do think that something needs to be done. But at the same time, it's like, we've been told we weren't supposed to leave the house, period, for like 4 months straight. And then out of fucking blue, they're like, okay, guys, it's good. We're all good now. Even though the numbers haven't really gone back down, actually went up a little bit since Easter, and then didn't really go back down from then. And we're behind on our vaccination schedule, but it's all good. We can go back to restaurants, and you know what? Fuck it. Have house parties too. Let's see. Well, it's an introductory course, so hopefully not too insane. Currently covering some history of AI and machine learning. Cool. Sounds interesting. Good luck with that. I applaud your efforts, and I look forward to you inciting the singularity and being the contributing factor that makes us go from Planet of the Apes to the Matrix. Meanwhile, I'll be programming little things in C# as like little treats to give the AI overlords. What I'm like, whenever they take us over and they're trying to put us all in pods, and I'll be like, don't forget about me. I'm the one who gave you guys the little code that made a fucking like one of those birds that dips its beak in the water. I made a code that makes that happen on screen. So remember that, robot overlords. When Skynet takes over, I was on your side. I assume that like codes that are written in C# are like Scooby snacks for robots. Tell me if that's what they say in your course. I'm sure they'll say exactly that. He's working on replacing you with an AI robot. Hope he does a bad job at programming it. Well, thank you. I'm flattered that you don't want me to be replaced by an AI robot. It's a weird way of being like, I hope that guy fails so that we can still listen to Reginald Barris on stream. But honestly, there are times when I'm like, hey, if you could replace me with an AI robot, let them do the work for me, that'd be cool, because I'm like always behind on stuff. There's like a thousand things that I want to do at any point in time, and all of them have a learning curve that I'm just like, I guess I can't do it, you know? Oh, cool. I wasn't sure if emotes would work for the laugh track, and they do apparently. So that's only cool for me, I think. But yeah. Anyway, so back to the, let's see, we have AI bots as comedians. See Amy Schumer. Back, had to talk to your uncle in England. Do we really need a second Amy? Well, I'm not gonna join in shitting on Amy Schumer. It's not for me. Her comedy's not for me, but like, you know, she's probably a nice person. And she has a fan base that likes her. So it's for somebody apparently. But no, I think I've actually seen something about AI. AI comedy. Yeah, so there's some, I don't want to open them, but teaching a robot to be, teaching AI to be funny. The robot uprising won't be a laughing matter. Oh, hold on. That one deserves one of these. Teaching AI to be funny. The robot uprising won't be a laughing matter. Yeah, so they have been working on it, apparently. I don't know how far they've gotten in it, but let's see. Well, that sounds interesting. Security robot commits suicide in a fountain because the world is terrible. Is this, I don't know, I fucking love science, so I feel like it's, is this like an Onion post? All right, take it easy, Alf. Is this like an Onion post, or are they really saying that the robot had an intent to destroy itself, or was it just that a robot fell? It's like a Roomba walked into the water. Let's see. In this day and age of climate change denying presidents, lack of healthcare, and anti-vaxxers, it's easy to get downtrodden about the world. For one robot, things got a bit too much, and it appears to have thrown itself into the fountain in a somber act of robot suicide. The robot was a Nightscope K5 employed as a security robot at communications agency GMMB in Washington, D.C. These robots are equipped with a camera to provide more physical presence than a regular security camera. Is it just more presence because it can move? They're also designed to move autonomously, which seems to be how the robot ended up in the fountain. A few posts on Twitter documented the final moments of the K5 robot as it ended up face down in a watery grave. God, the journalistic integrity that IFL Science has is top notch. Look at fucking Jonathan O'Callaghan. Well done. I see what you did. But like just the wording of like, oh, the watery grave, we barely knew ye. Or maybe it was just being baptized. Oh, I don't know why I thought I wouldn't need this again, so let's just... I feel like that's gonna come up a lot in these articles. Let's see. Our DC office building got a security robot. It drowned itself. We were promised flying cars. Instead we got suicidal robots. Let's see. It's a fun day. All right, take it easy, Anton. This feels like the most non-article that I've seen in a while. Of just like, yeah, the robot committed suicide, and then it's just 20 paragraphs about how a robot fell into the water. Also, here's the thing. It's a security robot. It's supposed to be like keeping the place safe. It's got wheels in that fountain. It has stairs next to it. Like there's a guard for most of the fountain. And then they have a stairwell where you can walk into a fountain, which I first off just don't understand why this DC office building needs that in the first place. You know, it seems like that shouldn't be something that you need in a fountain, especially not when you have a robot on wheels that's supposed to be keeping you safe. If I were being chased by a robot security guard on wheels next to a fountain, of course it would be in the water. It would be in the water in seconds. I would be like a Spanish toreador, but I'm with my fucking red flag over here, waving it, hoping for it to come, and then just ole, and it's going straight into the water. I'll juke it. I'll break its legs. I'll break its ankles. It's going in the water, and then everybody's gonna look and laugh at it and be like, haha, idiot fucking robot fucking committed suicide because the camera doesn't work, because it fell in water, because they left water available. That's so dumb. That's like if you're, I don't know. I You say that we don't need AI comedians. You say that Amy Schumer is indicative of a comedy robot, and that's why we don't need it. I would say what we don't need is robot security guards that can be pushed into a fountain. That's all it takes. You know, I can push a real security guard and he might fall into the water. You know what he'll do right afterwards? Tase me. Probably tase himself too because he's wet. But there's a threat. With the robot, as long as you can just push it and get away before the electricity starts flying, you're good. Perfect crime. Deletes the evidence as well. This was a dumb plan. This is not intimidating. Hold on, let me see if I can open this. I need to change my settings to get the audio. Like,
There's a new fleet of crime-fighting robots that look a bit like R2-D2. These robots are being made in the heart of Silicon Valley next to NASA's Ames Research Center. Knightscope, the company behind the robots, plans to rent them out for less than minimum wage. I went to speak with co-founder of the company, Stacy Stevens, to find out more. How would these robotic mall guards actually protect people in the mall? Because I'm thinking I'm some punk kid.
Nice hair. Thank you. I don't know if you're being sarcastic, but thank you.
I'm going to respect a robot.
I'm choosing to believe you're not.
Like a marked patrol car on the side of the
Bethlehem
street.
Shaka Ayano. Have we met before? Where are you from?
Actually, to provide a commanding presence, to actually have something there similar to the patrol car on the side of the street. Everybody sees that and they immediately say, okay, I need to behave. So it's not about having a human presence necessarily, it's just about having an authoritative presence.
I know they have cameras in them, but you can
No. I don't know if you guys heard what that was. I don't know if the volume's working right. You're from Ethiopia? Cool. How'd you find out about the stream? Did it just pop up randomly for you and find me some other way? I've never been to Ethiopia and would not have thought that I would find somebody from Ethiopia in this stream. So hello in your native language that I do not speak. But this robot, okay, I don't know if you guys heard this. I don't know if I've got the sound settings to where it's actually coming through to you or if it's loud enough. If there are any audio problems, let me know and I'll do my best to fix it. They said that the robots don't need to be human. All you need is an authoritative presence. Let's see.
Have something there similar to the car on the side of the street.
I'm some punk kid, and I'm going to respect a human way more than I'm going to respect a robot.
Well,
facts, okay? I'm just going to start right there. Salam. I assume I'm saying it correctly, but I agree with her. Yeah, I'm gonna respect a human more than I'm gonna respect a robot at this point in time. And I'm not saying that's universally true. Like let's say a robot that I might respect more. The T-1000. If I see this guy, this guy coming after me, I might respect him. I might respect that more than a regular human. If I see this guy running down the street after me, securing the mall parking lot, I'd be like, whoa, respect, be careful, okay? That seems real dangerous. But when it's...
think of it like a marked patrol car.
Respect a because I want more.
But not when it looks like this. Not when it looks like that. That is not a robot that I'm going to be like, oh, you know what? I respect you more than a human. You're so imposing with your looking like an egg. It is designed to look like a very breakable thing. And I'm supposed to be like, oh, that's threatening. Better watch out for that. I totally understand what you are. If I saw that when I'm at the mall and I see that, I'm not going to like his idea is, oh, it's not about seeing a person. You know, if you just put a camera up somewhere, or then people just like respond better. They react better because they know somebody's watching. So it's not about it being a person. It's just about a presence of authority. But I'm never going to look at that robot and think authority. I think I need to be put in this way. That doesn't scream authority to me. I don't even know what that is. If I'm walking down the street and I see that, I don't look at that and be like, that's better than the cops. I don't know what it is. If anything, I'm going to be like, can it swim? And if it can't, then I have my easy out, okay? I don't even have to like fucking take off in a boat. I can just walk across the fountain. It'll chase me, fall in on the first step, and then media outlets are going to be talking about how it committed suicide. Stupid.
And I'm going to respect a human way more than I'm going to respect a robot.
Well, think of it like a marked patrol car on the side of the street. These are not there to intervene.
No, sorry. I didn't realize that's what he said. That's what he said. Okay, I know that you think you'd respect a human more than a robot, but don't think of it like that. Think about it like a police car. It establishes authority. The reason a police car establishes authority is because there are police officers, and it's associated with the police officers who would be inside of it, who might murder you. You know, it's not like that's the dumbest analogy I've ever heard.
With anything being done, they're there actually to provide a commanding presence, to actually have something there similar to the patrol car on the side of the street. Everybody sees that and they immediately say, okay, I need to behave.
No one's saying that when they see this robot.
Necessarily, it's just about having an authoritative presence.
I know they have cameras in them, but you could also just place cameras. I mean, there are already cameras in the mall. So what else does this robot do?
Well, going back to when I was a police officer, one of the first things they teach you is you have to have a use of force, okay? And that first use of force is the commanding presence. So what a camera that is mounted up on top of a building does is absolutely no presence. There's nothing about that that says, hey, I'm here.
In the mall and I think, okay, it tells me I'm being watched. And I'm like, all right, I mean, I don't think in criminal terms, but I would think a criminal would maybe think about that a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to put yourself in the shoes of a criminal, right? They're looking for opportunity. They're looking for the ability to be able to do something. And if you take that ability away from them, they're going to move on to the next place. So when they come onto a property and they see all these machines everywhere, they're like, oh my God, what do these things do? What are they capable of? And who's watching me?
This guy is like, I applaud his efforts for like, apparently he made this company, he made these robots or is somehow involved in the production of these robots. I understand you got a product to sell. You need to stress how important it is. You need to show that you're solving a need for people so that you can justify your place in the market. I understand that, but you cannot act like people see these robots just dumbly
all these machines
fucking waddling back and forth.
So what a camera
and they see this and they're like, whoa, what are they up to? That must be pretty dangerous.
So
look at
what
that.
A camera that is
man, what can they do? There might have cameras in it. Oh, and then the use of deadly force is definitely, that's basically like seeing a cop car on the street. As a guy who said that he was a cop back in the day, I feel like I'm not like on the cop side with a lot of things, but I do think if I were a cop and I heard somebody talking like this about like, yeah, these are basically just as imposing and these are going to like dissuade people just as much, you know? I really think I would be very insulted.
From Doctor Who.
Well, we like to think of them as R2-D2, something a little bit more cute. When we put them out at a shopping center, we actually found people who were excited about it. They look at them and they run towards them, and we have two things have come up. One is the robot hug.
Bethlehem, I see your message. I'll answer in a second. I want to see where this goes real quick, and then we can talk about my hair again.
Two things have come up. One is the robot hug, and two is the robot selfie, and those have taken place everywhere we go. People just kind of come out of the woodwork. They think they're cute.
I think that just goes so directly against what he was just saying. We need a physical presence that really puts itself out there, that feels authoritative, that when people see it, they say, you know what? I don't know what that is. I don't know what it might do to me. I'm scared. I'm gonna straighten up. I'm gonna straight and narrow. I'm gonna walk the line. I'm gonna be not a criminal because I don't know what that thing is capable of. And then he, in the next sentence, says, well, when people see it, we think of it like R2-D2 because it's so cute. And people come up to it and they give it hugs and they take selfies. You know, that thing you never do with police officers. I would never walk down the street, see a cop and be like, oh man, I should get a selfie with that cop. You know why? Because they're so physically imposing. I should just get a selfie with them. They're just too adorable too. No. I can't go up and take a selfie with something that I'm actually scared of and going to be like, well, now I can't steal the banana because I just took a selfie with that robot. I'll feel real dumb. Dumb. Hold on. They can stick a paternity test on it. It says that you are the father. Honestly, that would be more terrifying than what they're actually saying. Let's see. Sorry, but you got to let's get back to your hair. You have curly hair and I have curly hair, and if I comb it, it looks exactly like yours. No sarcasm. And we are Facebook friends. I live in Vienna. So now I have to concentrate, I think. Now you have to concentrate on... Sorry, I think I lost that last part. But yeah, your hair looks like one if you comb it. What does your hair look like if you don't comb it? Is it like nappy, dreadlocks, anything like that? Because this is what my hair looks like. I haven't combed it in a few days, and this is what it looks like. But we're Facebook friends, and you're in Vienna. I just don't recognize the name. Sorry about that. Now I feel like a dick. To be fair, I don't recognize most names. I'm really bad with names. Curly? Let's see.
You also have a different, interesting business model where you're not selling these robots, you're actually renting them out.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's like every other technology. We are advancing so very quickly that if we were to sell them, in a few months' time, they're going to be obsolete. So by using this as a service, we're actually able to keep up with technology. We're able to make those hardware, software, firmware upgrades, and give our customers a much better product.
Yeah, and it's going to be what?
Yeah, that and the fact that like if it was like, hey, you have to buy this, people wouldn't buy it. If you say, try it out for an afternoon, people will do it. Partially because they want to take a selfie. They want to take a selfie with you. Concentrate on the show. All right, well, thank you. Okay, I got it. Got distracted by my hair. Now we can concentrate on the show. But thanks. I'm glad you like my hair. And again, sorry that I don't recognize your name. But here's the thing, like people also rent out bouncy houses for a day. And the reason that they rent out bouncy houses, just so everybody knows what a bouncy house is. People rent these out for a day too. One day they'll rent it out. They don't do it because technology, it's on the cutting edge of technology. And if I sold these to people, the technology just expands so quickly that that people would fall behind. It'd be just like every other piece of technology. You can't sell it because it's immediately obsolete, which is true. Technology does get obsolete very quickly, but you can sell an iPhone. You don't have to rent out an iPhone. She's like, you have to rent these out. You're not selling them. And he's like, well, it's like every other piece of technology. No one does that. No one's like, oh, cool. Look, I have this phone. It's not a new phone. It's a Samsung Galaxy S8. It's a few years old, but I was never like, hey guys, can I just rent that for a few phone calls for a week and then give it back to you? Because if you sell it to me, it's going to be obsolete so quickly that what's even the point? What's the point? Nobody does that. Nobody does that. They rent out bouncy houses because people only want a bouncy house as a novelty for a day or two. And I think that's the same reason that people are getting the security robot for a day or two is because people want to take selfies with it. They want to give it a hug. They don't want it to be an ever-present security force at the mall because they know that nobody cares. And look at this face. This face right here. It just screams skepticism. Now this is good journalism. Fuck the guy who wrote the article. This is good journalism because in that one expression, this micro expression on her face in this still that I randomly paused it on, she communicates everything that everyone should be thinking as they hear this guy talk, which is just, sure, nothing you say makes sense, but you seem like you really want to sell a robot, and you're so hopeful and passionate and driven, and I can tell you've given up so much of your life to accomplish this. Should I tell him it's a bad idea, or should I just keep asking leading questions? I'm trying the leading questions. I keep saying, do we really think that this is a sustainable model? What makes this I'll say that me, as your average consumer, when I see a camera, that makes me feel better about safety and make me a little more hesitant to commit a crime. And he's like, no, that's not true. And she's like, but it's me. And he's like, no, what you need is an R2-D2 to make people know, oh shit, I better not act up because R2-D2 might come and get me.
$6 or less than minimum.
And give our customers a much better product.
Yeah, and it's going to be what, $6 or less than minimum wage.
Correct.
Yeah. So the robots really are taking our jobs, maybe.
No, I don't think they're taking the jobs. I mean, you really need a tool that will help you to do your job better. Thinking of the security guard. Security guard can only be in one place at one time. If you give them the technology to be able to access on their mobile phone all of this wealth of information created or generated by the machines, they're actually going to be able to do their job better. So we're not looking.
Yeah, one person can do their job better at the expense of 10 people not having a job anymore.
Looking to take their job, we're looking to augment them and do so at a very, very affordable price.
Okay, I'm still waiting for the robots to take over, but thank you so much for speaking with us.
My pleasure, thank you.
Oh man. Thank you for sending that, Christian, because that was fucking uncomfortable. And it was such a cringy interview where every single point she made was a pretty valid point and one that everybody's certainly thinking about. And her response, every time she would raise a valid point that should be at least confronted, whether or not she's right, whether or not there is a justification for it, he should at least be addressing the fact that she's brought it up in a way that like actually answers the question. And every single time she said, well, what about this? Or I'm thinking about this. His response was, no, that's not how people look at it. No, that's not what we're doing. And then he just describes what she just said. No, we're not taking people's jobs. We're augmenting it so that fewer people are required to accomplish the same job. One person can do their job better because there are fewer, because now we have robots doing what other people could do. See, one person can only be in one place at a time. So if we add 5 robots, that person's doing their job better. No, because that's 4 people who don't have jobs now because you're doing it at $6 an hour or under minimum wage. And you're like, nah, I think we're providing a service that's really just for the better of the people. And it's going to be so physically imposing that people are really going to be like, oh, that's the equivalent of a cop car on the side of the street. We better act cool. Act cool before we take our selfie. And all of that, the dramatic irony, because I'm sure that was recorded before, let me get the music playing again. I'm sure all that was recorded before this, but like that's the dramatic irony that's just so beautiful about this whole thing is he's like, nah, I'm pretty sure we've cracked the code on this one. And we've made a system that adds a physical presence that's very imposing and also adorable at an affordable price in order to augment the jobs of the security officers. And then you just scroll up to this right here, this fucking robot laying face down in a watery grave. And the only people who've been augmented is, yeah, you're right, you have created jobs because now there are 2 technicians who need to come and figure out how to get the robot out of the fountain. Bravo. Bravo. And that's why I'm hoping Alf is out there learning how to do. The guy's arguments did not hold water, literally. That was bad. It was really bad. I'm hoping Alf, in his intro to AI, is coming up with a better solution than this guy. The thing is, I don't even think that what he's saying is all that bad, but like, this ain't it, you know? Like, sure, there are ways to I don't know, just say what it is. You are prioritizing cost effectiveness over people working, and that's fine if that's what you're gonna say. I mean, that's right here. Wages are always fair. Big businesses knows what a worker's labor is worth, and what a worker's labor is worth is paying a robot less. We get it. If that's what your philosophy is, fine, go for it. But like, don't act like your robot rental service is helping the employees that are being replaced by it. And also, if you're gonna do that, put some razor blades on it. I'm all for it if your robots look like this. Like, if it just looks like a BattleBots thing, like boom, this scorpion thing right here. If your robot looks like this, I'll agree. It's imposing. It's a physical, you put a camera on top of that. honestly, don't put a camera on it. A camera on it makes me feel even more safe because it's like a police officer having a body cam. Put no camera on it. That means it can do whatever the fuck it wants and no one's gonna stop it. No one's gonna know. That's gonna be scary. This right here, yeah, that's gonna make me think once or twice about whether or not I should steal a banana from the local mall. But fucking R2-D2, it looks like, what is that? White robot movie. Yeah, it looks like this. Like, this is not imposing. Now that's a police presence that's really gonna stop me. Well, thank you, Christian. That was a fun little rant. Anyway, back to finding out whether or not I'm a Nazi. All industry in the bank should be nationalized. I will say strongly disagree, because once you nationalize, I think that, I don't know, it's a weird thing, but I have noticed that if you look at a lot of institutions that are government run, they are horribly inefficient. And the post office, the United States Postal Office, financial loss. The United States Postal Service net loss for the year was $9.2 billion in 2020. In 2020, the United States Postal Service lost $9.2 billion lost, net loss, and a controllable loss was $3.8 billion. Why are you still a company? You should not be a company if that's how bad you are with money. If you lent me $20 and I spent it on a hooker instead of bread, you wouldn't lend me $20 again. You'd be like, that guy's not good with money. We shouldn't trust him with money. We will just give the US Postal Service, which is not even the best postal service. We still have FedEx, we have UPS, we have Amazon, we have EPD, I think, or DHL, like all these other options that are used much more often than the United States Postal Service, and they lost $9.2 billion, which is $363 million more than 2019. But you know what? Does the USPS still exist? When I type it in, the only thing that comes up is why? Why does it still exist? And that's the question, because it still exists when it lost $9.2 billion last year. So no, I do not think that all industries should be nationalized, because the USPS, it's not like they're doing that so that they can like make the best postal service possible. They just spend money poorly because that's how the government handles money. Exploitation is an outdated term, and as the struggles of the 1800s capitalism doesn't exist anymore. I will say I kind of disagree. Communism, ? Is an ideal that can never work in practice. I think that's probably true. If it can, I have not seen a society do it yet, or come close, or make a good argument for it, where you're like, oh, they're doing a good job with it. I feel like communism and capitalism still have the exact same outcome, which is a disparity of wealth between the very, very rich who are in control and everybody else. It's just that how we say it, the reason why there's that wealth disparity is really the only difference that I've seen as a learned musicologist. I dropped out of musicology. I'm a dropout of a musicology degree. I feel like I understand a thing or two about economy, okay? Taxation of the wealthy is a bad idea. Society would be better off without it. I'm gonna say I'm gonna say I kind of disagree. It depends on how wealthy it is. The thing is, I do feel like businesses get fucked get fucked real hard when you're starting out a business. The lower levels of business, you just get taxed out the fucking ass, and there's so many licenses and so much paperwork you have to do, and so many ways to hemorrhage money when you're starting a business. Despite the fact that, like, if you don't start a business, if businesses don't exist, the economy doesn't really exist. And I feel like there's so much value to whoever, like a guy who's opening up a new grocery store and hiring 7 people to do it, and then paying, you know, for deliveries, and you're generating so much revenue for like other people, and you get taxed so hard at the beginning that most businesses go out of business in like a couple years. So there's certainly a point where as a small business, I feel like there should be like a little bit of help for, like, you know, maybe don't fuck everybody who's trying to like not just be an employee. But then, yeah, I would say at the highest levels of wealth, yeah, there's probably some money to go around. There's still the question of like, why do you deserve 52? If I could make $1 billion this year, yeah, if 50% of that goes to the government, will I still be fine with $500 million? Yeah, I will still probably be pretty fine. But there is still the question of like, I generated $1 billion. Why is $500 million of that not mine? I don't know. It's weird, but I do think at a certain point, it's like, I don't think that we're necessarily entitled to rich people's money just because they have so much. But I do feel like when taxes were first introduced, I read this, that when taxes were first introduced, they were sold to people as like, hey, this will we'll tax the rich, and that will allow us to finance some stuff, because at least in the States, federal income tax did not exist until like the 30s or something like that. And they sold it to the poor people like, hey, this is gonna make the rich people have to pay for everything. And then what they quickly found out after the poor people voted to make it a thing is that rich people are very good at finding ways not to pay taxes. And they're gonna know, they're financially intelligent enough to find all the loopholes that poor people are never made aware of. So definitely the idea that the lower classes have to finance everything obviously wouldn't be a good system. So I would say taxation of wealthy is, I would say kind of disagree that it's bad. The harder you work, the more you progress up the social ladder. I will say I kind of disagree with that. Well, I'll say I'll strongly disagree with that if we're saying that as a blanket term that's supposed to apply to everything. Because I don't care how hard you work as a plumber. That's not changing anything. Class is the primary division of society. I will say I kind of agree. I think that race is a really big one for a lot of societies, but I also think that part of the reason that it stays such a big thing is that race and class have been linked hand in hand for so long. So yeah. Economic inequality is too high in the world. I will say yes. I'm only a third of the way through this. Well, okay. Let's see. The government should be less involved in the day-to-day life of its citizens. I will say yes. Kind of agree. Sometimes it's right that the government may spy on its citizen. No. Authority figures, if morally correct, are a good thing for society. Okay, I'm gonna say I agree with that one, but I also think it's like, yeah, if we're gonna say that's the statement, then sure, but that's not. But that's like neither here nor. That doesn't mean that we should have the authority figures. Like, yeah, if I don't know, for all the problems that I think probably existed with Castro in Cuba, and I'm sure there were a lot of problems, there was also, I heard somebody talking about it, they had like a good healthcare system or something like that, and it was because and that might not have been that issue. It might have been a different issue. But the thing was, if there's a good idea and it's like, hey, we should have universal health care, let's say that's the thing. If I'm a dictator and I say, let's have universal health care, then I just do it. Then you just get it. I don't have to go through a chain of command. We don't have to say, hey, what do you think, Congress? What do you think, House of Representatives? What do you think, Senate? God damn. Fucking 8th grade social studies. But I don't have to ask all these people. We don't have to like bounce it around. The fact that we have this, what is it called? Checks and balances in so many different, democratic countries is good because it stops somebody from being an authoritarian, but also bad because if there's a good idea, there's tons of people who can fuck up the good idea from ever happening. So yeah, if a person has only good, nice, compassionate ideas and they are authoritarian and nobody can stop them, then yeah, that's good. But how the fuck do you know that's going to be the case? You don't. Just as easily, they can have one great idea and have 1,000 bad ones, or they have 1,000 great ideas and then they murder half the country. And it's like, I don't know. Does that mean that we should have done it? Not really, but yeah, I guess if they are morally correct, then yeah, it's a good thing. Strength is necessary for any government to succeed. I agree with that. I'm not saying that that's good, but I think that the only reason people pay taxes is because they'll put you in jail if they don't. And it's this like the threat of violence and the threat of force that's gonna it's that we have, if we just replace the entire government with R2-D2 robots that you could take selfies with, I think the world will be a better place. I think we can all agree on that. Only the government can fairly and effectively regulate organizations. Strongly disagree. Without democracy, society is nothing. I will say no opinion either way. I think a democratic society without democracy, sure, that's a problem. But I would also be very hesitant to say that, like South Korea, that their society is nothing. Feels like a very closed-minded way of looking at it. I think that if you met people on a day-to-day basis there, I'm sure that we wouldn't agree with their lifestyle or want to be in that lifestyle ourselves, but I don't think it'd be fair to say they don't have a society and their society is nothing because it's not the way that we view ours. That's some real like European conquistador shit. Like, oh, you don't live exactly how I live? Doesn't even count then. Jury nullification should be legal. The smaller the government, the freer the people. Kind of agree. As things are right now, society requires structure and bureaucracy in order to function. As things are right now, I guess so. I don't know, that one doesn't feel like a political belief or a political stance as much as like, yeah, it's a system that's been built to need bureaucracy. Does that mean bureaucracy is good or helpful or the best way to handle it? No. Does it mean that this society couldn't be better if we took away some structure or bureaucracy? It doesn't mean, no, it could be potentially, I don't know. But as things are right now, yeah, that's the system. That's a stupid question. Mandatory IDs should be used to ensure public safety. Strongly disagree. The government should only provide emergency services and law enforcement, no more. I'll go no opinion either way. I think I'm gonna go strongly, kind of disagree. Government, I think if we're already presupposing the government is bad, question, structure and bureaucracy are not the same thing. I know, that's the thing is like, I've seen like, I think like bureaucracy in so many cases is a perversion of structure and it makes it much less structured because of the formality. And it's like this thing where it's like, well, we have to do it this way, and this way. And it's like, that's a structure, but like it's, I don't know. I think if a structure gets too convoluted, it's hard to still call it structure when it becomes chaotic and inefficient. But I feel like there are several reasons that's a bad question. I think some of these questions have been not very good questions. And I think that's part of the point. They're also trying to like, I think the problem is it's like asking you questions where it's like, this doesn't really tell me what my political, like my answer wouldn't be reflective of what my political stance or my political viewpoint is. But it's like you're asking, does this current system require structure and bureaucracy to perform? Well, yeah, but that's just because that's how it was built. But that has nothing to do with my political ideals of what it should be. In times of crisis, like, no, I would say that the government should only provide emergency services and law enforcement, no more. I think that, I don't know. I've kind of, the thing is, I'm not the most like politically minded person, or I don't ponder it a lot, but I do hear the argument for libertarianism to a certain extent, where it's like, if we privatize things and leave it up to the free market, free market controls a lot of things well. And I think in a lot of cases, it does. I mean, again, if we look at the example of the fucking US Postal Service losing $9.2 billion in 1 year. In 1 year. Then, or you look at like how universities or how schools use their funding, and it's like, oh, let's say they gave us $100,000 to spend this year. We only needed 80,000 of it, but we have to hurry up and just basically waste that last 20,000 as soon as possible, because if we don't spend all the money they gave us in the budget, then next year's budget is going to be smaller, and we don't want that, despite the fact that we didn't need the money clearly, which is why we're looking for bullshit reasons to spend it right now. And you see all these kind of things where it's like, yeah, once you put that government jobs have a tendency to be, you can't really progress very high, and the wages aren't very good, and the way they spend money to finance the organization is structured very, very poorly. So I do get the idea of like, let the free market decide, but I also think that if you let the free market completely decide everything, people can get real shitty real fast, especially when numbers get high enough. But I think if we're already saying that we are going to use law enforcement, then we're going to already have to be levying taxes, or else in emergency services already presupposes that taxation has to exist, or else how are they financing it? So if you're going to say that, then it's like, you can't say they should only provide this and this, but like they shouldn't do anything else because they're taxed. I guess you can. But I think as long as they're taking the taxes anyway, then yeah, offer more. If you want them to not offer more, don't take the taxes. But then also you can't provide law enforcement and emergency services in the same way. In times of crisis, safety becomes more important than civil liberties. I will say I kind of disagree with that. Though I guess coronavirus is an example of that. Yeah, I don't know, mixed feelings, but I would say kind of disagree. I think that civil liberties are still important. And I think when you start taking them away for times of crisis, what defines a crisis and who decides what deserves to be taken away for that time of crisis? Or like when Obama signed the NDAA, I think in his second year. I don't know. I was still in college, and he signed it, and he said he wasn't going to because it had a clause in it that said that if somebody was suspected of being somehow connected to or like a terrorist organization, or like suspected of that, it was like very vague wording. That also like had a tangent somewhere that said like, if you have more than 2 weeks worth of food, like non-perishable food in your if you're in possession of more than 2 weeks worth of non-perishable food, that can put you on that same list of like potentially suspected to have like to be suspected of like involvement with an organization that might, or like with not the best interests of the country or something like that. It was a weird, vague wording, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was one that was like, if that, then we can detain you without the rights to a trial. And it's like, now you're saying that if you think we somehow don't have the best interests of the country in mind, in very vague terms, you can take away the basic right to having a trial. It's like, I don't know, is that better? Well, it's a time of crisis. Why is your personal liberty important if we want to keep everybody safe? And it's like, because I don't want to go to Guantanamo for no reason and never be heard from again. So I'm going to kind of disagree with that one. The police was not made to protect the people, but to uphold the status quo by force. I kind of agree. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive, though. I think people want to protect the people by upholding the status quo by force. I think that they're not mutually exclusive. State schools are a bad idea because our state shouldn't be influencing our children. I'm going to say I kind of disagree with that. Because state schools, Austria's education system is quite good and state-run and therefore much less expensive. I'm kind of looking at university at this point, but I don't know. I think just because a state just because a state finances a school doesn't inherently mean I don't know. That just presupposes that like the state can't teach you objective history or math or science without inflecting their political beliefs onto it, which I guess in a lot of cases they do fail at that, but like it's not by design, it doesn't have to be that way. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Strongly disagree. Homosexuality is against my values. Strongly disagree. Transgender individuals should not be able to adopt children. Strongly disagree. Two consenting individuals should be able to do whatever they want with each other even if it makes me uncomfortable. Strongly agree with a clause that it should be consenting adults. An individual's body is their own property and they should be able to do anything they desire to it. Yeah, I strongly agree. Drugs and harmful substances should be banned. Strongly disagree. Death penalty should exist for certain crimes. Strongly disagree. For those who don't know, I'm biased on that one, but I think it's a valid bias. My stepdad was on death row and he was executed in 2009. So it gave me a very, very keen insight to how that system works. And I have yet to hear a good argument for capital punishment, death penalty, that isn't just revenge based. Pretty much any argument that you're going to offer about it is about like, but eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, but I'm mad at him. But like that's justice is killing that person too. But like when it comes to like, one, it's not a deterrent. People keep saying, well, if you're threatened to, if somebody knows that they're going to get the electric chair for murdering somebody or for whatever the crime is, they won't do it, which is not true at all. Like there's studies, look at the rates of things happening. Crime does not go up significantly the moment death is off of the table. People are going to commit those crimes regardless. Most of the crimes that end up on death row are heat of the moment, crimes of passion, and you're not thinking about the consequences then. If people were thinking about the consequences, they probably wouldn't murder the person because they would think of the consequences of that, regardless of their own punishment. On top of that, not being a deterrent, the people that it actually punishes are the family members and the people who know that person, not the person who actually committed the crime, because it's way easier to be dead than it is to be stuck in prison. Also, it's not cheaper. It's so much more expensive to execute somebody through all of the court, like all the litigation that's required for it. Like every step that has to happen or that tends to happen because of a death sentence ends up being significantly more expensive than just having a person live in prison for the rest of their life. And it's one of those things that's counterintuitive because most people assume if we execute a person, then they won't be, leeching off the taxpayer's dollar with the time in prison. But like, it doesn't cost that much money to have somebody in prison. And I don't know, there's just, I don't have the stats with me. I haven't looked them up in a long time. My mom could say more about it because she's, been quite an activist for the anti-death penalty movement. And also is like writing a book about, illuminating the problems with the systems right now. But multiple sources over the past few decades have seen it's dramatically more expensive to execute somebody. Nonviolent crime should still be punished. Yeah, I kind of agree. I won't say, like theft is not, or I guess larceny. I guess it's theft. the name of a crime, or is it? I think stealing's not a crime. Theft is a crime. If I'm not sure, but like, yeah, that's a non-violent crime, but it should be punished. But then also, like, smoking weed is a non-violent crime and shouldn't. But without religion, one cannot be moral. Strongly disagree. Parents should hold absolute power over their children as they are older and more experienced. Parents over their children. I would say I kind of disagree. I mean, I'm trying to think, is the question asking, should they hold the power over them as opposed to like the government? I don't think that's what they're asking though. Should parents be able to do whatever they want to their children because they're older and more experienced? I want to say strongly disagree for that one, because that's if this sentence needs to be interpreted as the reason that parents should hold absolute children is because they're older and more experienced and that therefore they deserve it, I'm going to say I strongly disagree with that, because that's stupid logic. I think parents should have a lot of control over their kids because they are older and they're just responsible for the children's survival and are more capable of ensuring that than the child by itself at a certain age. But like, that you're older doesn't mean shit. Like, I'm older than you. Hey, 5-year-old, the reason you have to listen to me is not because I'm your mother. It's not because I've been tasked with bringing you into the world. It's not that I'm going to be held criminally liable if you die because I don't handle my parental duties well enough. It's just that I'm older than you. That's right. If somebody's older than you, then they're inherently more experienced. And if somebody's more experienced than you, then you need to listen to them and they can do whatever they want to you. Now that's a lesson we should teach to our children. Dumb. A person who should be able to worship whomever or whatever they want. Yeah. Nudism is perfectly natural. I will say kind of agree. I feel like the question comes down to how are you defining natural? I think society's deviated from it long enough that the idea of natural also feel nudism should be good for good-looking people only. Look, if my time walking past the FKK zone has told me anything, is that nudism is almost exclusively not for good-looking people. It's generally for old guys with saggy balls who stopped caring. That's what I've seen most of the time that I walk past a nudist zone. That's predominantly it. It's just a lot of sun-damaged old people. But I do think it's like it shouldn't be a problem, but it's also this thing where it's like natural, sure, in the same way as like, fucking a paleo diet is quote unquote natural, and it's like, yeah, does that mean that that's, I don't know, is natural inherently good? Not that nudism's bad, but it is just a thing where like society has not done that for so long that it is a deviation from societal norms for many, many societies. Not that that's inherently bad, but like, I don't know. I think that's a bit of a philosophical question. If something's deviating from the society that it's a part of and the societies that it stemmed from for the past 500, more than that, for the past 1,000 years at least, is it still completely natural? And it's like, yeah, it is natural in the sense of like we had to make clothes. Humans were born naked. We've made clothes, but also we haven't been we lived naked. Most of human societies haven't been we were born naked. We lived naked with no amount of covering at all for like centuries, if not millennia. So at a certain point, it almost feels like it's natural to put clothes on for whatever reason. Animals deserve certain universal rights. I would have to, I'll say no opinion either way. I'd have to like, tell me what those rights are, and I guess then I can answer. Gender as a social construct, not a natural state of affairs. I will say, kind of agree. I would say, I think it's an interesting thing whenever I hear people talk about like transgender people, and the big argument is like there are only two genders, man and a woman. It's in the science books, and then it's like no, gender is a spectrum, etc. It's like it's not a spectrum, it's binary, man and woman. I think it's always such a weird conversation that I never hear people arguing the point of like, okay, fine, gender is a construct, two biological sexes. They're not like. If we just stop using those two words interchangeably, I feel like the argument changes completely, and it satisfies both things. It's like, okay, if we can concede that gender and biological sex might not be the exact same thing, then there can be two biological sexes, male and female, with intersex existing, but just being not very predominant, and not, from what I've read, not. I don't think most people who are transgender are intersex. Could be wrong, but it's like, okay, if we can say there are two biological sexes and then intersex, but like primarily two biological sexes, but 1,000 genders or whatever, I feel like that's an easy enough thing to just be like, sure, fine. I think a lot of the things that surround it, I think like penis and vagina are certainly not social constructs, but I think a lot of the ways that we handle a person because of their penis or vagina has just been socially imposed on us. I know words. Oh, we're getting close. We're getting real close. So, multiculturalism is bad. Strongly disagree. Laws based on cultural values rather than ethical ones aren't justice. That's a bad question. I get what it's trying to do, but like, it says that like cultural values and ethical values are inherently mutually exclusive and on opposite ends of the spectrum. But that's not true, because ethical values are based on your culture. One culture's idea of what's ethical is going to be completely different than another culture's idea of what's ethical. Ethical isn't like a universal truth with a capital T that everyone can completely agree on regardless of our culture. Like, as if everybody from every culture is going to say, look, we all agree. Like, I don't think anybody in the Middle East is going to say, we can all agree that ethically we're monsters, but culturally we agree with us, and that's why we worship Allah. No, like, what are you talking about? Of course they think, listen, these woke concepts are harmful towards society itself. One can identify as whatever he or she wants, but don't police the language. Force me to learn 7,912 pronouns and stuff. Don't want to get off topic here, but still. I mean, feel how you feel. I'm fortunate enough to where it's not my cross that I have to bear. It's not my crusade that I have to spearhead. And I certainly feel like if I had, I don't get too much involved in it because it's never affected my life, so I don't have to, feel the consequences of it. And I do, people might not like that I say this, but I do hope that if and when I have children, I would hope that they're not transgender, because I don't know how to handle it. Not that I would still love them, and like if they were, it's not like if my kid were transgender, oh no. As much as it is like, I think their life would be easier in the society that we currently have if they weren't. And I don't know what the right steps are. I don't know when the right moves to do which things are and where they are. So for me, as a cisgendered man, who's born in the right body, identifies with the gender assigned at birth, I am not the person that's going to be telling people how to be about it. But I would agree, like, I think policing the language does feel somewhat oppressive in certain instances, or it feels like somebody's yelling at you and telling you what to do. But I also think a lot of that is like what we're seeing on the news, or what we're seeing people complain about online, or we're seeing videos of extreme examples of people who are like very radical. or very militant or very aggressive. And that's the reason we're seeing videos about it. And I feel like a lot of people are pretty chill about their genders. And I feel like I see a lot of young people on their social media profiles, it'll be like, I'm she, her, I'm they, them, I'm whatever. And I think on a person to person level, if I meet a person and they say, please don't refer to me as her, even if they look to me like a woman and they say like, I don't like being called her, that doesn't feel like policing or bullying as much as just like, okay, I can do that for you as a person. And it's the same thing as like, I wouldn't be super happy if people referred to me as her and she, but the thing about the pronouns is that they already implemented them in Canada. It could slowly erode society. I don't know if I would agree that it would, I guess it would depend on what you mean by slowly erode society. I think that that's one of those things, it's like a slippery slope that's being presented of like, this is the downfall of society. And I don't really understand the logic of like, if society is compelled to use certain pronouns, which I'm not saying that like, I have heard about Canada stuff with like Jordan Peterson being a big advocate against that. And it's the compulsion of like forcing the language upon me and compelling my speech. And it's that's taking away my ability to have free speech if I can't misgender somebody. Just kind of feels like give one finger, ask for more. I've never heard that expression in that way. Sure, but again, that is still a slippery slope argument. That if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile is by definition a slippery slope argument. And I think when it comes to I think if you accidentally misgender somebody, you go to jail. That is not good. But I also think if you say that, I don't know. I also get that like if as a cisgendered guy, if my whole childhood, every day somebody was calling me she and he and her, she and her, and calling me a girl every single day, and it's like I'm a boy. You can see I'm a boy, and I identify as a boy because I have a dick. I'm in the boys' room. All these things my whole childhood, and everybody insists on saying he and she and her to me because they want to hurt me at a certain point. At a certain point, like there is a degree of it where, not that everybody, but there are definitely people out there who, if you tell them you're transgendered and you say I identify as she or her or they and them, there are people who will just be obstinate about it, and they will say, I'm going to insist on calling you her and she or he and him because I've decided I don't accept how you identify yourself. And I think that that's fundamentally the same thing as if I'm a boy and you call me a girl all the time, and I'm like, hey, but you're just being mean at a certain point. Like you've decided that it's more important, not you specifically, Christian, but like that person who wants to be mean is deciding it's more important for me to be able to call you what I want to call you than for me to just like be nice. And I think that that's kind of where it comes down to, is like obviously if somebody accidentally says he when it's a they, then they shouldn't go to jail. But I also get at a certain point when it becomes a harassment where it's like, you know what my gender is and you're intentionally misgendering me. And I don't know, I just think about like when I was a kid, like I was thinking about this recently, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to make a joke about it, like, but I don't think I will, because it's I don't know, it's just a hot topic that I don't feel like touching anymore. But I do think that like I can imagine how much it's not fun to be misgendered, because I remember being a kid and kids calling me gay or the F slur on the playground. And as a not gay person, I'm like, hey, I'm not gay, and it would hurt my feelings. And like, I don't even think there's anything wrong with being gay, but as a kid, when somebody calls you gay, you can tell they're being mean, and that doesn't feel good because you don't identify as gay. And if you did identify as gay, then you can still tell they're doing it to be mean. And I think at a certain point, it's like, yeah, if that's how much it sucks when you're not that, then it's the same sentiment, you know? It's like when Romanians get upset if you say gypsy because they're like, they don't like gypsies, is basically what it comes down to. Because like as an American, I have no concept for it. Like it doesn't seem like a real group to me. And I'm kind of like acknowledging more and more that like, okay, maybe that is not a nice word to say. But like it to me, it's like from the Hunchback of Notre Dame is the only time I was exposed to that. So I have no like ill will what behind the word. But if you call a Romanian that, they will get furious with you. And the only reason that they would get furious with you is because they agree in their minds that that would be a bad thing. Like, I'm not, and fuck you for saying that. Because if you call me a Mexican, I'm not gonna get upset with you because I'm not a Mexican and I don't have a problem with Mexicans. So like, I'm fine. Like if you call me a Mexican, I'm like, that's not, I can call you, I don't need to call you that. Don't worry, that's not my point. My point is like, I'm not a Mexican, but I also have no problem with Mexicans. So if you call me a Mexican, I'm not necessarily gonna get upset about it. But if you called me a Mexican and I get furious about it, it's probably like, that's what a racist would do. It's like, if I call a racist a Mexican, I'd be like, fuck you. I'm not one of those. And I guess that's the issue is because I was thinking about that. I had both of those thoughts, that one and the one I just said about transgenderism. And I had both of those thoughts and I was like, oh, maybe I can like tie those two things in together for a joke. And then I realized they are two conflicting ideas. They are the opposite perspectives of what I just said. On one hand, it's like, yeah, if you called me gay when I'm a kid, it didn't feel good. But on the other hand, it's like, if you call me a Mexican, I won't actually care. So, I don't know. I do think I would joke with something along the line of, I hope you have cash or whatever. Well, I mean, good that you're not upset by it, because I also think that implies that you're not racist, or at least less so against that cultural group. I just think that like there is a point where like, yes, if you compel it to the point where like, if I say she instead of he or instead of they on accident, and you're saying that now there's a criminal case against me because of that, I think that's an issue. But I don't think that's what most of it is. Whenever they're talking about the stuff in Canada, I don't think most of it is that. I think, if you go slippery slope argument, you could argue that it's opening the door for that to potentially be the case in the future. But I think most of the people that I hear and that I meet who are mentioning their pronouns aren't yelling at me. They're not forcing it upon me. They're not saying this is what it needs to be for all of society in the sense of like, fuck you, you piece of shit, as much as it is like, hey, these are my pronouns. And if I choose not to address them as that, I think that they would have every right to be like, hey, could you please, use the pronouns that I respond to? Because I don't call you a girl, Reggie. So could you not call me a girl? And at that point, I think they'd be like, oh, that's pretty fair, And if I don't want to do that, then I don't have to talk to them. But I think if I do keep talking to them and I say, I understand that you don't think you're a girl, but I've decided you're a girl and I refuse to just say the other word instead. So I'm going to keep calling you sir. Okay. Or whatever. I don't know what the consistency is with what I was just saying. But I think if I'm going to do that at a certain point, it's because I'm trying to be mean. And I think at a certain point, if I'm just being mean and there's no legal recourse that a person can use, at a certain point, it's harassment. And I do think that that kind of helps. It probably helps in Canada to like establish a case for a gender-based harassment or a sexual harassment or whatever kind of harassment it is in a way that wouldn't have been possible if they didn't address it at all. So I don't know. I don't think that it's inherently a bad thing to the pronouns thing, and identify how you want to identify. Obviously, when somebody's gonna, bully you about XYZ, that's an issue. But I also think that that's not what most people are actually doing. I think that's just what you see the most on YouTube, because those are the videos that go viral, because it's like, what the fuck is this? That would be calling those robots from before Terminators. Yeah. If you call those robots from before Terminators, I'd be like, fuck you. That's an R2D2, okay? And I would. If you misgender that, I'm assuming that Terminator and R2D2 are the equivalent of robot genders, because why not? It's all unexplored territory. If you misgender that Terminator as an R2D2, or that R2D2 as a Terminator, more so. Yeah, I'm gonna be upset about that, okay? I'll bully you. I'll bully the fuck out of anybody who says that R2D2 that tripped and fell into the water and everybody called it suicide, which I think really implies way, way, way too much intent from that robot. I think that robot was on Roomba programming and it just tripped and fell, and everybody's like, oh, suicide, look at that. Like, they're trying to imply that robots, the AI is so good that they made that robot have emotions, and not that it was a Homer Simpson of a robot. Maybe someone hurt the robot's feelings. I don't think that robot has feelings. I think that's the problem. I think if it had feelings, before we even get to feelings, why don't we just get to sensors that can detect when water's near? or when stairs are coming, because it fell down stairs. Everybody's like, oh, it drowned itself. It tripped down stairs. It died falling down 3 stairs. So before we work about AI and feelings, why don't we work with fucking sensors? Oh, but this actually makes people's jobs easier. As a security guard, you can't be in all these places at once. So we have these rambling robots that just kind of wander around in circles, and hopefully they don't fall downstairs. You know what? If you want to really make the jobs easier, make each security guard have one robot. Don't make it AI. Make that person that have a fucking Xbox controller, and they're patrolling that way, and now they have multiple angles of cameras from that one robot. That's one person per job that's being taken by a robot. So then you're actually not replacing the jobs. Then you're actually contributing to now people can do their jobs better, and you don't have to worry about all the fucking technology of like, oh, cutting edge technology. We can't even sell these to people because the technology is so cutting edge that like you think, but I think that's actually the best PR spin possible. They're like, the technology is so cutting edge that by the time we would sell them to somebody, it's already outdated and it's obsolete already. And it's like, well, this one fell in the water yesterday. Yeah, that was yesterday. But I'm telling you, bleeding edge of technology, we're already way past that. Couldn't be me, you know? All right, we're almost done with this. Laws based on cultural values rather than ethical ones aren't justice. I'm gonna say no opinion either way because that's a stupid fucking question. Autonomy of body extends even to minors, the mentally ill, and serious criminals. That's not fair. That is not a fair question. Those are not 3 things that should be in the same category. That's so stupid. Saying that a minor and the mentally ill are comparable as far as body autonomy. I think everybody should have a certain amount of autonomy about their body, but like, I don't know. I think the mentally ill should be allowed to pierce their tongue if they want to. I think if you have a panic disorder or depression and you decide you want to put a fucking stud through your tongue, you should be allowed to do that if you're an adult. I think if you're a 5-year-old and you see somebody with a tongue piercing in a movie and you think, I want to do that, you should not be able to make that choice by yourself. But that has nothing, those are not the same category at all. And serious criminals, I think it's the same thing there. It's like, yeah, if a serious criminal wants to pierce their tongue, fucking go for it. I don't understand why being a criminal should take away your body autonomy. The only thing that I can really think of with that is the idea of chemical castration, is what I would assume is the conversation there. Is like, if somebody's a rapist, should they be chemically castrated? And I still feel like there should be some body autonomy there. I think that if that was going to be presented, I feel like it's like, yeah, if you put up with a rapist, if somebody's convicted of rape, which first off which just is not about that specific topic, but just the criminal justice in general, the criminal justice system in general is flawed. And there are times when people who are convicted when they are innocent. There are times when people are not convicted when they are guilty. We acknowledge that's true in both instances. And I think that if you're saying that this person, because they're convicted, inherently loses their ability, they should be castrated, whether it's chemically or physically, because they were convicted, is one of those things where it's another problem with the death penalty is you can't take it back if you are wrong. There have been so many people who've been exonerated of the death penalty or of their crimes after they were executed. So it's like, okay, now you've murdered a person and then you find out afterwards they were innocent. What can you, oops, that's what you have to say for yourself? Just oops, cool. You know, I think it's the same thing. Is like, if you say, okay, this is a serious criminal because they've been convicted, which there have been so many false convictions for so many various reasons. And you say, well, that person needs to have like their balls cut off because they were convicted of rape. And then you find out 6 years after you cut that person's balls off, it turns out we got more DNA evidence and you were completely innocent. It's like, yeah, well, now you didn't take away the body autonomy of a serious criminal. You took away the body autonomy of a person who was already being unjustly persecuted. So I don't know. I think if you're going to say like, if a rapist needed to be castrated, I feel like that should be something that's like presented as, here are your 2 options. You go to prison for X amount of time and blah, 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 or you go to prison for Y amount of time and chemically castrate yourself. Or like, if you decide that you want to get chemically castrated or regularly castrated, then here's your different options if you do that. or here's if you don't do that. And then that still leaves a sense of body autonomy. But I think the idea of like, if you just say you're a serious criminal, you are now, what's the word? Not euthanized, sterilized. If you just like automatically sterilize every serious criminal, if that was what you were going to say you'd do, I don't think that's not the same category as a fucking child. Stupid question. No opinion either way. All right. So this is not a very detailed, I'll be honest. When I saw a glance at somebody else doing one of these the other day, and they had like a bunch of answers. And also here it says like, welcome. After much toil and struggle, I bring to you a Compass website that isn't completely whack. Disagree. Ding, that's the CinemaSin right there. All the other sites make the mistake that they try to fit your political opinion into 2 dimensions, and we try to stretch them into 10. I am sure that we can all agree you need at least 3. Authoritarianism is not inherently reactionary. Click here to take the quiz. So I did all that, and I really thought that was going to give me like a pretty nuanced thing. And it's like, well, you need 3. You need at least 3 dimensions. It was just anti-authority or pro-authority, economically left or economically right, one single dot. How is this any more detailed or nuanced or what was there or not whack? How is this not 2 dimensions? Also, or they try to stretch them into 10, but I think we can agree you need at least 3. Emphasis on at least, which means it could be more, could be multiple more, maybe 10, some might say. We can all agree on that, but that would be whack. What you need is this. Progressive or conservative. Oh, I guess the progressive and conservative is the third one. But I feel like, okay, economically right, okay. What a weird way of presenting that data. Like, here are your results. Your X score is -2. Your Y score is 2.3. Your progressive score is 10.4. Context? No, we're not going to contextualize that at all. I think you get it. You're a robot, right? Are you a Terminator or an R2-D2? Either way, here's your data, -2.2, 10. Get out your T90 graphing calculators and try to make sense of that. I am a little bit economically left and a little bit anti-authority and quite a bit progressive. So am I a Nazi? I don't think so. We'd have to go back and answer all these questions like a Nazi would answer them in order to really find out. But I would assume that Nazis were pro-authority, I assume, and economically right. But I actually don't know about that. I don't know what National Socialism, if that counts as economically left or right. But let's see. I took quizzes when I was a teen from those silly magazines, and they were more entertaining. Well, you know what? I'll be honest. How entertaining do we really think this was going to be? Sure. Have I been doing it for 2 hours? Yes, I have. Have you been here watching it for 2 hours? You sure have. Did we see the first 5 questions and realize this probably isn't very entertaining? Let's talk about robots for 30 minutes. We certainly did. Yeah. I don't know. This was, man, I thought this would tell me something, but this just didn't. I guess all the questions were just too shitty. All the questions were like not good enough. Not all of them. Some of them are fine and pretty straightforward, but there were so many questions that just like didn't really, to answer the question doesn't actually allow, it doesn't allow for the nuance of like, yes, that is, you're expecting better results, not my fault, but the commentary is entertaining. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the commentary. Yeah, I was really hoping for better results, but I guess at the same time, when there are so many that are like, hey, should it be ethical or should decisions in justice be based on ethics or culture? And it's like, yeah, those aren't mutually exclusive. This is a fundamentally flawed question. Well, does the current system as it is today need bureaucracy and structure? And it's like, yeah, not the same thing. But even if you're going to say, do I need both of them? Yeah, I guess so, because that's how the system is built on, but that has nothing to do with my political opinions. That's just was a system that was built. Like, I built a house that has a door in the front, and the door is how you go inside. With the house as it's built today, do you need to go in the front door? Yeah, I guess so. What does it have to do with my ideas on how houses should be built? Goddamn nothing. This sapling installation is a clone of the original, edited to be more mobile friendly and to use bootstrap theming. After the original seemed to disappear from the internet, the source files used, including the questions, have not been changed. Oh, yeah, this sucked. Sorry about that. But yeah, that was it. Anything else to talk about? Or else if not, I'll get off here. Cause I'm hungry. But yeah, I'd be up for just looking at this AI about comedy real quick and see if they really can produce a comedy bot that is more effective than me and Amy Schumer. So, let's see. Okay, well, according to this caption, artificial intelligence will never get the context of jokes like humans do, and thus machines in themselves have no real need for humor. Okay, it looks, okay. I feel like that's gonna be contrary to what the rest of this article is talking about, or else the article will be done right there. Okay, I'm just gonna read it out loud because I don't trust you guys to be able to read for yourselves, and I need to make sounds. Okay, it pretty much looks like robots are becoming capable of doing just about anything we mere mortals can do. From picking raspberries to sex robots with AI capacities straight out of Blade Runner. Have not seen Blade Runner. Did they have sex with robots? Sure, critics are fearful of artificial intelligence. Could be that artificial intelligence could be the end of the human race, or at least we'll all be put into human soon with a robot. But can AI take over our stand-up comedy clubs? Right now, Alexa and Siri can occasionally riff off witty quips, but do comedians have something to fear in dystopian futures where the robots might be primary laugh providers standing? Hold on, sorry, I got distracted. Siri and Alexa sometimes have witty quips, but like those were programmed in, right? Siri's not using AI to answer you. Like, is it? Like, I think it's probably using AI to like search for the answers. But when it says like a sarcastic remark, surely that was programmed in, right? Humor is like an opposable thumb. It's what makes humans so unique. That's stupid. But maybe it's not the stupidest thing I've read so far, but like humans are like the opposable thumb because humans are literally the only animal that has that. Oh, wait. Sure, your dog might make you laugh when you dress it up in people clothes, or, oh my, I don't want to read this. Whoever, I'll tell you what, I don't know what the answer to this is gonna be, but I'll tell you one thing that's for sure. AI can probably be funnier than this article is. This article is trying so hard. It's trying so hard to be funny. Oh, and I don't like it. I don't like it. Okay, Harmon Leon, give me a second. I'm gonna see if Harmon Leon is a failed stand-up comedian. That sounds mean, but like if he's an aspiring stand-up comedian. Okay, that's the problem. Is this the same person? Oh, my internet's terrible, apparently. Harmon Leon is an award-winning journalist, author, comedian, and filmmaker. This is his website.
Today it's my privilege to host this program on a little known area in law enforcement. It's the area of satanic cults.
For the record, I'm not going to jump in and just roast this guy. At least his website is a joke. I have to give it to him. I'm not gonna. I don't plan on watching this just to talk shit on him. We all whatever. But it's just this article. I will not. I won't read the whole thing because the thing is, I feel like it's trying to present itself as if it's educational or informative or something, but it's just bad jokes. And not that like if I had to write a generic article for some random fucking I think the Observer is quite popular. I don't actually know much about it. But if I had to just like was commissioned to write these kind of articles for people, they probably also wouldn't be the best I've ever fucking like the most things I'm proud of the most or whatever. But I don't know. It's trying so hard. Right now, Alexa and Siri can occasionally riff off witty quips, but do comedians have something to fear in a dystopian future where robots might become the primary laugh providers? It's also like not well written. That's such a long sentence. Right now, Alexa and Siri can occasionally riff off witty quips, but do comedians have something to fear in a dystopian future where robots might become the primary laugh providers standing in front of a red brick wall? That's not well written. Like, and it's like I don't say that to be like super judgmental. I just say it from a sense of like I've been thinking about this and reading a lot about this recently because it's written like you would write something in high school, but not to say that like it's poorly written like a child wrote it. It's written like a high school teacher wanted you to write your art like essays when they're like, well, you have to like a 5-paragraph structure where you have to first paragraph just has to be restating the thing. Then you do this one, and it's all about like filling up space and like using long words, a lot of like sentences with a lot of commas and a lot of clauses because then it sounds more academic and it sounds more intelligent. But it makes the sentence from an editing standpoint, it makes the sentence so bogged down and inefficient. Let me turn the music back on for a second. Nope, that didn't work. Like this paragraph is 2 sentences long. Sure, critics are fearful that artificial intelligence could be the end of the human race, or at least that we'll all be put into human zoos after the robot uprising. But can AI take over our stand-up comedy clubs? That's 1 sentence. It's a very long sentence. At least, admittedly, it had the brackets, but like that should be broken up into like 2, maybe 3 sentences that are all short and to the point, and they make a person who's reading it feel like there's progress to what they're reading. And also that it's not confusing. I'm not confused by it, but I'm also a native speaker, and I guess I'm also more attuned to this because I've spent so much time talking and performing for non-native speakers and like writing for non-native speakers as well, to where it's like you need to be a lot less ambiguous, and the more clauses you put into your sentence, the more turns that you have to take and twists and turns just makes it harder to follow. Even if you're not a non-native speaker, it's like one of those things where like a person has to like, I feel like sentences like this are good for if the person's already decided I have to read this article. If it's something you're reading in school and you have to read it because they've told you have to read it, then it's like this is going to have all the information in there. But that's not how the internet works, and that's not how articles work, and it's not how most of the stuff that you're copywriting and putting on the internet works. Nobody has to read your article. Nobody has to read your post. Nobody has to read that you released a podcast or whatever it is. Like things for myself too. It's something I've looked at a lot where like you put it out there and you're trying to put all this information out there. Nobody has to read the caption at the bottom of your Instagram post. You have to write it in a way that makes people want to. And it's like, and convinces them this is why it's worth doing. And when you have sentences like, right now, Alexa and Siri can occasionally riff off witty quips, but do comedians have something to fear in the dystopian future where robots might become a primary laugh providers standing in front of a red brick wall? That's such a long and wordy sentence that just plods along. And maybe this is like, who gives a shit? Sounds like this long sentence was translated from German. Is it? It's just a feeling? Yeah, it kind of does. In a way, it does. And that's the thing. Is like, I think when you get long sentences that sound like they're like Deutsch, like where it sounds like it came from German and then became English afterwards, like a lot of academic papers have sentences written like that. And it's written like that because when you have these like convoluted sentence structures, it makes people, like when you write it and people read it and they have a hard time. Basically, that's what it is. When I write a really long and convoluted sentence in an academic paper, it makes it more difficult for the person who's reading it to understand what I'm saying. And in that, it makes that person feel like, wow, this person must know what the fuck they're talking about because I'm barely following along with what they're saying, or I'm having to struggle for it. And it has this sense of elitism of academics of like oh yes, it was so well written. I had a hard time. Like I have a doctorate and I was able to follow it. Oh, you don't have a doctorate and you weren't able to follow it? Well, that must be because I'm so smart, not because it was poorly expressed. Like at a certain point, yeah, you do have to have certain terms, like maybe your sentence does need to be long because it's a very complex thought, or maybe you need to use a long or obscure word because that's the most effective word to use for the situation. Like it's the one that communicates it the best in the fewest words. But in a lot of cases, it's not really necessary, and it really feels like it's one of my issues with academia is there's a lot of using longer, more complex terminology for its own sake. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I've gotten it. I was good in school, and like I'm one of those people like school was made for. Like I never had a problem with school, and it was very easy for me without really trying, because it was like, I guess, not that I'm like crazy smart as much as like the way that they like school only caters to like certain learning styles and certain like types of intelligence and certain etc. It's that whole like, what is it? Education system animals. Yeah, it's this. So for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam, please climb that tree. And not everybody is equipped for that. Like, and actually, nope. Oh, there's a monkey. Okay, yeah, so the monkey can climb the tree, no problem. Like, I was the monkey when it comes to school. Well, that sounds not good. But like in this case, where it's like climb the tree, I was able to climb the tree. Like, that was my learning style. So it's not even like I didn't get this kind of stuff. And I've certainly had times in the past where I would talk, my mom would talk to me like I was an adult when I was a child, like when I was like very young, to where I just always used big, like hoity-toity words and complex sentence structures all the time. And it alienated me a lot as a kid. And I was just like, well, that's because I'm smart and therefore I get intimidated by it or whatever. And it's like, no, at a certain point, if you want to communicate with somebody, you need to communicate in a way that's going to best communicate what you're saying. And yeah, you might think, well, I'm communicating it as well as I possibly could because I'm using the best sentence structure, this long garden path sentence and a lot of eloquent words, and that therefore I'm doing the best way of communicating everything. Ta-da. But it's like, yeah, but if the other person didn't understand you, then you didn't communicate properly. Because it's not just about how you put it out there, and if they don't get it, they're wrong, you should have done it better. If I'm putting it out there and you're not understanding me, that's on me too. Like I also need to accommodate that. And that's what really annoys me about sentences like this, where again, this is not one of those, that's what annoys me about academia, where they really make these like sentences that sound like German syntax with how like long and clunky they are, that you just like put into Google Translate and came back and then it's like, wow, that was so difficult to read. It must be because the concepts were so difficult to understand. And it's like, no, you should be able to, if you really understand a concept, you should be able to explain it in a way where a child can understand it. And yeah, at a certain point, like if you're in a medical journal and you need to use, words that are like mitochondria and ATP and like all these kind of terms, there's gonna be jargon that comes up that like you kind of have to know that. I'm not gonna write an academic paper about a fucking photosynthesis and never use the word photosynthesis because people won't understand it. But at a certain point, you need to accommodate your listener and really just make it short and simple and stop like masturbating the idea of like, look how well I wrote this sentence. Oh, there were so many words. It took so many curves and turns and oh, that's how I know it was good. It just get to the point. And this is not doing that. And that's my big problem with it. It's just like right now, Alexa and Siri occasionally riff off witty quips, but do comedians have something to fear in a dystopian future where robots might become the primary laugh providers standing in front of a red brick wall? You can leave out standing in front of a red brick wall and it does not change this sentence at all. Adds nothing to it. Adds a little bit of like color to the imagery of it, but like it adds so little so late. And also the primary laugh providers, who says that? Like, I feel like maybe it's trying to say like, oh, because that's how robots are going to look at humor. But that's not what comedians are fearing, you know? Do we have something to fear that somebody's going to be the primary laugh provider? If you're saying primary laugh provider because it's a robot, so that they're looking at as a providing a service of laughter, that's all it is words, you know, humor input, then that's one thing. But you're saying the comedians are fearing it. So the comedians you can't say what the robot's intentions are with the comedian's fears. That makes no sense. So you can also get rid of primary laugh providers. And you can, this whole sentence could be, yeah, sure, right now, Alexa and Siri, I wouldn't even take out Alexa and Siri. I would just say sometimes Siri, I'm turning into a grammar Nazi. Not even a grammar Nazi. It's poor writing. And it's not about grammar as much as it is. I guess it's technically grammar if we're talking about syntax and whatever. I don't give a shit. It's not like a your versus your thing. It's just poorly communicating. And it's like, it's so long. It's so long. I will not read the rest of this article. I will rant about the article for another 10 minutes. Rest assured, don't you worry. I got nothing better to do. But I'm not going to read the rest of it because it's just such a plotting, like that sentence infuriates me. That whole thing could be, I would probably say something like, you could say like, sure, there are like, yeah. So you could say something like, yeah. So that whole thing's like, sure, hashtag Siri fails. You can I don't know. Sure, hashtag Siri fails can be you can get a good laugh or something like that. But do comedians really have to worry about a dystopian future where robots have taken their jobs? That's like a 12-word sentence that communicates everything that is said in 3 lines. This whole paragraph is 2 sentences. Ugh. Anyway, did I get rid of this? There you go. I want to see this. And I promise I won't be as mean about the comedy as I am about the words.
They were using this tape that is so clearly full of just bullshit to anyone who's ever listened to a heavy metal album.
If I were going to sacrifice someone, I would use my bullying.
And they're training police officers with this.
Another thing that is oftentimes done in ritualistic homicides is a penis is placed inside the mouth of the deceased person.
It's always easier to make Satan your villain because Satan doesn't exist. But if you can conjure a Satan, then that's easy and it dehumanizes individuals.
In Austin, Texas, another self-styled satanic cult expert was used to secure the convictions of daycare owners Dan and Fran Keller.
I understand this is a joke. So I'm not gonna respond to this as if it's like somebody being serious. What I am curious about though is how I'm assuming this is a joke. I'll put it that way. It's pretty absurd to not be a joke. But are any of the sound bites real sound bites like that people really said, or is it all scripted? That to me changes what this is. Because if some of these lines are like, that was a weird sentence, but if it was scripted like that and he just chose to write that, it's like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. Like the penis in the mouth one. I feel fairly confident like that. Sometimes they'll put a penis in the mouth of the deceased person. That's the whole, if you can make a Satan real thing, that sounds like it. Like, to me, if I find out that some of these quotes are real and this is clips of things that people really said unironically, that makes it a lot funnier than if it's all scripted, you know?
And before you know it, it has turned into wild accusations of orgies at the Keller's house kind of brought into Satanism. When you look at something like the Westminster 3 situation, like, I think that's an easier one, right? People went to prison for a long time. People got life sentences based on nothing.
I have personally observed people wearing black fingernails, wearing black T-shirts.
In religious people's minds, and maybe in law enforcement, it's always very black and white when it's not. You're having to get more creative now to create some unseen enemy.
This whole Q thing is about thinking for yourself. Hopefully just wake people up.
I'll check out that link in a second.
Theory that Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring and that you are the savior.
I look at QAnon and I see the exact same storyline. It's weird as head again.
But we will not go on offense unless somebody very high up tells us to.
Stand back and stand by.
Maybe you think your community is immune to these satanic crimes. Well, it's not.
13 people are now facing federal charges. We're learning more about the Atlanta area man who has now been identified as Cleveland Meredith Jr.
There are going to be a lot of people rounded up. I think the punishments will be severe, and I don't think it will ever happen.
Hail Satan.
Huh. I don't know how to feel about this. Okay, it's a trailer for an upcoming documentary. So I feel like everybody's actually said these things. And it at least makes sense that it was not supposed to be funny, because at the end of it, I was like, I don't know if I completely get the joke, but okay, it's a documentary. All right, let's check out that link you sent, and then we'll call it a night. Can I turn that off? Oh, this is my guilty pleasure. Oh, I feel like a fucking rebel. Look at that. Oh, I just turned off all your legitimate interests. Not so legitimate after all. What? Okay, so I think those might actually have to be turned off. Here's the thing. Here's how they get me. I hate these websites. I get that the GDPR thing is probably good, but it's definitely become a situation where like all these websites make it so fucking difficult to just say no. And I come in here and I turn all these off, and what I would normally do if I wasn't, live at the moment, this is what I do. I just end up saying accept all because it won't go away. Okay. AI bot learns to do stand-up after watching hundreds of hours of stand-up comedy. When is this from? 2018. Because that doesn't surprise me, actually, because that's the thing. I don't remember who mentioned it earlier, but the idea of like comedians being safe from comedy is absurd, because AI has gotten good at a lot of stuff. And will it always make sense? Well, like, not necessarily, but like it's pretty good at like getting patterns down. And a lot of jokes are just patterns. I will say, I know somebody who posted a video where he put a bunch of his jokes into an AI thing, and it came up with jokes for him based on AI and based on his text. And they sounded a lot like jokes I would have believed that person would tell. Does that mean they were good jokes? It doesn't. Which I will not say who this person was. But, it sounded like I would have believed it if he said he wrote them. Sooner or later, robots will behave identically to us, or at least that's what the big names in tech, including Elon Musk, have estimated after seeing the latest progress made in machine learning. For now, any attempt at artificial intelligence to be human-like is bizarre at best and cringeworthy at the worst. That is definitely the case when a bot script was left to read over 1,000 hours of stand-up comedy before being asked by Comedy Central writer Keaton Patty to deliver jokes of its own, making references to Bill Cosby, Tony Hawk, and buildings. Its style can be described as error-prone and drier than a chalkboard. Oh. A portion of the robot's joke output was put on the Twitter showcasing 7 deliveries that appear to be a mishmash of unrelated concepts, yet are surprisingly laugh-worthy. See for yourself. I forced a bot to watch over 1,000 hours of stand-up comedy and then asked it to write stand-up comedy on its own. Here's the first page. All right, here's what we're gonna do. I won't show you the script. I'm just gonna read it. But first, just a quick reminder. Hi, if you guys don't know about Patreon, let me tell you about the wonderful world of Patreon. Patreon is a community, an online community where we are funding projects and we come together and create awesome things. I'm a great salesman. Hi. Take two, please. Anyway, so if you haven't already, check on the link down below in the description, patreon.com/TheReginaldBarris. We do online comedy shows twice a month right now is what we're planning on doing. We'll see how it goes into the summer as things start to open back up. But right now it's twice a month. And if you join the Patreon at the VIP tier, you get free tickets to all the online shows, as well as information and up-to-date stuff and an ability to contribute to other bigger projects that we're working on. So it's not just about, those tickets, so that is a nice plus and a nice little perk, but it's also about the fact that you can help make something bigger and make something more interesting and contribute to the laugh track that we got going on. The laugh track that, it doesn't exist anywhere else on the internet right now, that nobody is choosing to use tonight. But if you come on these online shows, there'll be much more reason to use it, because I won't just be reading a fucking really shitty quiz about my political spectrum all night. Instead, we'll be doing jokes and stand-up comedy specifically. So if you haven't already, consider joining the Patreon, patreon.com/TheReginaldBarris, and joining our awesome community. Or if you don't want to make that commitment, what you can do instead is you can just get tickets to the next comedy show, or subscribe on YouTube or twitch.tv, or just watch this on Twitch TV. Follow me there. If I can get enough of that, then, or if you have Twitch Prime, we can just, all these things are options, and they don't even cost you money for most of them. Patreon costs money, but it's much more helpful and you get more out of it. Anyway, back to the show. Anyway, so I'm going to give you a taste of what Friday's show with Jack Holmes could be like if he were an AI robot. So I've got the script in front of me from this AI bot that was forced to read 1,000 hours of stand-up comedy and then write jokes back. And they were about Bill Cosby. They were about Tony Hawk. They were about buildings. Really, really weird way of phrasing that sentence. I got the script in front of me and I'm going to say it as if it was me. But I guess I can't because it's written. They got thousands. Weird. They were fed thousands. The AI was fed thousands of 1,000 hours of stand-up comedy, and based on that, it learned how to write what came out. But what came out was a script, and the first words on it are stand-up comedy as the title. The next ones are interior comedy chub, meant club, but comedy chub, which I don't understand how, if you're feeding it hours of stand-up comedy, why is it getting stage directions? Don't understand. But I am the robot, and this is what the comedy show would be like that you could turn on Patreon, etc., etc. If I were a robot. Interior comedy club. We see a stand-up standing up. The microphone so hard. Oh, they microphone so hard. Stand up. Yesterday, my son say he want to be Tony Hawk. I say, if you want to be Bird, hollow your bones. Hold on. That's gonna be helpful. The audience laughs. Birds have evaded humor for too long. Stand-up continued. This guy gets it. Stand-up points at the guy wearing a shirt made out of, that says, "This is my only shirt. I used the rest of my money to hollow my bones." That's fucking uncomfortable. He is shirt man. He doesn't actually get it, but he is close. Stand-up continued. What's the deal with kids hating vegetables? I cook broccoli Obama and my son reboots ISIS. Y'all eat? The audience cheers. They all eat. They all belong here. Stand-up continued. Siri is mean to me. I ask what the weather is wearing, and she airdrops my mortgage to Bill Cosby. He is already housed. The audience cries with the laughs. The tears go uncollected and untaxed. That should be the name of a stand-up comedy special right there. Uncollected, untaxed. Stand Up takes a drink from the bottle of cigarettes. Stand Up continued. Lot of naked buildings nowadays. The audience gasps. It is not allowed to bring up the fact that this fact in public unless you are a building. Stand Up continued. It is okay. I am half building. The audience relaxes. If you are half, you are whole. Here is my impression of Al Gore. Al Gore, like a pumpkin. Stand Up acts just like Al Gore, old, white, and white. The audience claps. Shirtman's hollow bone hand snaps into pieces. Shirtman cares not. Laughter is the breast medicine. Finn. Ooh, I should actually include that. Oops. So, that was it. If you want more gems like that, you should come to the show this Friday, 8 p.m. Central European time. Jack Holmes is going to be doing a comedy show that is not going to be AI based. He wrote all his jokes himself, and that's how you know they're so good. Information's on my Facebook somewhere. Or if you join Patreon, you just get the tickets emailed to you for free. Anyway, that's been the show. That's been the stream. I hesitate to call it a show, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Christian, thanks for being so present and talking the whole time. And to the others of you who have been just lurking and listening, thank you. Hope you enjoyed it too. And if you didn't, fucking thanks for not turning it off. I guess I hope that I gave you some nice background noise to listen to as you jerked off to hentai or whatever you're doing on that second monitor. Who knows? Let you know when I'm back in Stuttgart. I will let you know for sure, but I have no idea when that's going to be perfectly honest. I have honestly no clue when I'm going to leave. I haven't left the city in over a year, which is weird to me. I know that's not the weirdest thing in the world, but I used to tour 60 cities in a year. I haven't left this city in over 14 months now. So Stuttgart is another one where Climax Institutes, where I always do the shows, I don't even know if they've been allowed to open yet. Whenever I talk, a friend of mine talked about wanting to do the show there in the fall because he was like, I should do a tour when we don't know if the countries are going to stay open. And he talked to Climax and they said that they weren't even going to be allowed to open until spring of 2021. They said that back in August. And then that was before the second lockdowns happened. So I have a feeling they probably still haven't opened. I hope that they're still going to be a business whenever, everything lets up. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know when they'll be allowed to be a place again. I don't know how many people will be allowed to have in the shows. And it has to be enough time to where I'll be able to know the show will happen, Yeah, maybe the vaccines will fix it. Who knows? I just know my mom got a vaccine and she was telling me about it. And it's just because you get the vaccine doesn't mean that you're not going to get the virus. It just means that you're more likely to not have it become deadly, and you're less likely to have a severe case of it. But you can still get it, and you can still pass it on to other people. So I feel like even if 50% of the people have a vaccine, I don't know. That feels like it doesn't really solve the problem, Because it's not 50% of people who can't pass it to somebody. It's just 50% of people who won't get sick and also feel more entitled to go outside and get the other 50% of people sick. I don't know. Maybe it'll get fixed. Hopefully it'll get fixed. I'm sure sooner or later things will get better. Almost definitely. I just have no idea when that's going to be. The closest I've come to booking anything outside of the city is I might be doing something with the military in Germany. I got an initial talk about it, and then we don't know. So maybe in July or August is where they're shooting for then. So we'll see if that happens. And if that can happen, that means that the rest, the military can only do something on base event-wise if the regular countries, if Germany's the host country, if their regulations for general people, the general public, also allow it. So if I'm allowed to do a show in Germany for the military if that ends up being able to be possible, then whenever that becomes possible, it'll theoretically be possible for me to try to do shows in other cities in Germany too. But I definitely want to come back to Stuttgart. It's one of my favorite cities to do comedy in. I've always enjoyed it. I'm very curious how it'll look whenever, and how many people will be allowed to have in the building, because that's a place that always had more people than seats. And I don't know if that's going to be allowed anymore. But yeah, I'll let you know. It'll be announced, and hopefully I'll see you then, and hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. Hope you've enjoyed it. I'm gonna get out of here. And Christian, I know I can't make it to Stuttgart for a while, but I can make it to your living room for an actual stand-up comedy show and not just this weird rambling on May 23rd, if you're interested. The information is in the link in the description. Anyway, thanks. See ya. Good night.